If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Today's guest is someone who's had the highs and lows of living in a remote community in Australia. This is Nicole Mutimer. She lives in the Northern Territory. She was raised in the Northern Territory, and we're going to talk about that throughout the interview. She's the owner-operator of Darwin Equestrian Centre, or Darwin Equestrian Academy, and is an equestrian coach and trainer. How are you today, Nicole?
Good, thanks, Glenys. Thanks
Good.
for having me.
That's all right. Look, lovely to talk to you. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot of insights into horses that, living in the city, and a lot of people from different countries are going to go, wow, it really is different where you live. Like we've all got horses and we've all got that common thread and common interest, but different in your part of the country.
Yeah.
All right, but let's start off with your favourite quote.
Okay, so my favourite quote is one by Dr. Andrew McLean. Mm-hmm. So, and the quote is, "We should see every disobedience as a failure of our timing and reinforcements, not as a failure of the horse." Mm-hmm. So I think I connect with that quote in that, often as when we're training or coaching, that we sort of can, it's easy to sort of say, oh, he should, my horse knows, he knows this, or he should have done this, or he should have done that, instead of just looking at, what in my ride says whatever he's heard, that we've got to just always go back to looking at what we've done as riders.
Yes.
That has made the horse think that was the right answer, because he's only ever going to answer what he hears. Mm. So for me, that one sort of really resonates, that I sort of go, yeah, look, I think as trainers we sort of have to always be thinking that way, rather than, the horse is being, he's being rude, or he's, doesn't want to do it, but he knows what he should be doing, because they're only ever going to answer what they hear.
And I think that's a little bit of a maturity as a horse person, isn't it? That we're not blaming the horse, we're using the horse as a reflection on what we're giving out.
Oh, absolutely. And we're horse riding. I think what's remarkable about it is that it actually teaches you more about yourself.
Yes.
And about managing your emotions, and about emotional maturity, probably, in lots of ways. And I don't know that we get that in other sports. I don't know, or at least to the extent that horse riding sort of makes you definitely have some real insight into your own emotions and, even your state of mind.
Yep.
So I think horses are really remarkable like that.
I think in other sports, there's team sports, but usually everyone's on the same team and working towards the same goal, whereas the horse, they're a little bit of an unknown quantity when they're being brought into the team. You have them and you train them, but you've still got to respect them as an individual, and you can't just force them into that team environment.
Oh, absolutely. And look, obviously what we sort of say, it's the hardest thing about getting two brains to work together as one. And of course, the horse is always going to be, they'll have different motivations, whether it's, food, or whether he's herd bound, or whether, they'll have different motivations. So it's complex in that sense, because we never get the same ride. We've got to be, versatile enough to be riding almost a different horse every time, in terms of, that they are their own being. So they, of course, naturally have responses to outside things. Obviously, in training, we work towards eliminating or reducing those. But definitely that, I often joke when I'm coaching, or we discuss that even in going in a different direction, you might have a completely different ride or a different horse.
Mm-hmm.
So going away from the other horses, you might have to ride quite a bit more forward, and then heading back towards the horses, you might have to be waiting a little bit. So it's that complexity of not having. It's not necessarily a consistent, stable thing all the time, that we've got to be really variable and adjustable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But when we do get it right, isn't it brilliant?
Oh, look, it's addictive.
Yes, nothing quite like it.
It really is. And I think that's, when you've had those little glimpses of how amazing it is, that's sort of what gets you stuck, I think.
Yeah, it gets everyone hooked, yeah. All right, now look, you've got a bit of a different story. Tell us about, horses aside, like where you grew up until how old was it before you moved to Darwin?
So I grew up in Larimer, which is central sort of Northern Territory. It's, fairly remote.
And how many people were in the town?
There were 12 people when we lived there.
Okay.
And we were 4 of them, so as in my family.
Yep. And where you lived, the property where you lived, how close was your nearest neighbour?
So they were sort of all cattle, it's all cattle country out there. So it was about 50 k's was our closest neighbour.
Yeah, which is about 35 miles, isn't it? Is that right? Yeah, 36 miles, maybe something. Yeah, 35, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, so we did school of the air, so school by radio, and there was one other kid in the town, or one other young fella who was a year older than me. So so that was it. So we sort of, I think, in that sense, horses were kind of, that was sort of really all there was to do, because you couldn't sort of go and play. You couldn't go and play netball, or you couldn't, there wasn't sort of too many options.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, look, I think from there, having horses and having them as something that was just, I suppose, a way of life. Going then, when you came to the city, which is Darwin, which was were you there before the cyclone? Be after the cyclone? Because it really developed.
After the cyclone. Yep. Yeah. So we moved up to Darwin when my sister and I sort of hit high school age, because obviously for schooling we sort of needed to move to a major centre. So that's when we moved to Darwin, and that was sort of the first time that I'd had any formal training, like for riding. So we sort of went to pony club, and that was, up until then it had sort of just been point and shoot kind of thing, like you sort of learnt to stay on.
Yes.
Pretty good. And so pony club was a really big influence, actually, as a young, rider or a teenage rider. And I remember just craving this, information and knowledge of sort of going, like that's how it all sort of fits together. So pony club was actually a really big influence for me as a teenager. And I remember, like so we had pony club every Sunday morning, and for the pony club season, and you didn't miss pony club for anything. Like it was the highlight of your week.
I just want to take you back just to a little bit before then. Your saddles. What sort of saddle did you have, or did you have a saddle?
So when we were in Larimer, we had a big old stock saddle that one of the station managers had actually given us, and I'm sure it must have weighed about 20 kilos. And as kids, we actually couldn't. Mum and Dad weren't around all the time to sort of saddle the horse and that sort of thing, and we couldn't lift the saddle onto the horse. So 90% of the time we sort of rode bareback, and because we couldn't lift the saddle onto the horse. So that was
And tell us, because I know you said about the pony club season, right? Now, like a lot of times you'll have a competition season because you might stop at Christmas time for a few celebrations. But tell us about the 2 seasons, or the seasons in Darwin.
Yeah, so we have a wet season and dry season. So basically the wet season, not much happens in the wet season up here in terms of horses because it's obviously too wet. So even in the, like now in the competition season, so we're sort of just getting to the end of our competition season now, but a lot of people send their horses south after the competition season's finished so that they get them out of here before the wet season because it is really tough on horses up here. In the wet season, dry season is good, but the wet season is definitely really tough on horses.
So what sort of things does a horse have to cope with when it's the wet season?
Yes, I mean, obviously tropics, it's in the wet season, it's that high humidity, and that's what seems to knock horses around more than anything, is not necessarily the temperature, because we tend to, in the wet season, might be 38, it might get to 38 degrees, but it's the really high humidity. So obviously we see other states, New South Wales, and, that'll get hot in summer, but they obviously don't have that high humidity constantly. So we see some horses get a condition called the puffs. So basically where the sweating mechanism shuts down and they stop sweating. And it's an awful thing to see because horses get, really stressed because they're overheating, basically. Yep. And then obviously we get lots of tropical conditions, so fungal conditions in the, with the skin and the feet, and that sort of thing because of the moisture and just the ground's wet all the time and that sort of thing. So, getting your horses through the wet season can be a bit of a chore. And then, come the dry season, obviously it's, we don't sort of get any rain, and that's when all of our events are on. But it's our season comparatively is probably quite short, as in most of our competitions will happen between April and August.
Yep.
So, and then the wet season, it does make it a bit hard. You only have sort of a few, hours in the morning and a few hours of an evening that you can sort of work horses because otherwise it is just too hot.
Yep. Yep.
So heat stress and that sort of thing is something that we've got to be really careful of.
Okay, so that the puffs or anhydrosis, that's fairly common up there for horses that stay there. What percentage of horses do you think would be affected in some way?
Yeah, so there doesn't seem to be any real formula to work out which horses are going to get it and which aren't. So typically, it was always thought of as a condition that horses that came from south originally, got. But look, I've seen horses, that have been territory bred horses that have developed it. So and it doesn't seem to be specific to thoroughbreds or we see ponies that puff. So it sort of seems to be a bit hit and miss, bit of a lucky dip, which horses are going to cope with the heat and which aren't.
Yeah. All right. Now, thinking of Pony Club, because we were talking about starting off in Pony Club when you first came to Darwin, jumping from there to having a career with horses, because you're now the owner-operator of the Darwin Equestrian Academy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've done, as a, sort of growing up, I've done a lot of different paid work that have been horse-related jobs. So, from stable hand sort of work to strapping at the racetrack and working horses, schooling horses for people and doing a bit of part-time coaching and that sort of thing. Sort of all started, fairly early for me, I suppose. But I guess I always probably thought of it more as probably not really as a career path. It was pretty hard work.
Yes.
So I probably didn't really look at it as a full-time career path. And look, there weren't the opportunities, I think, then that there are now for people to get into equine-related industries.
Definitely.
Now when I look at, it's
a lot more awareness.
And the things available, it's amazing. And we definitely didn't have that then. So your scope was definitely a lot narrower in terms of, career paths, whereas, now I think it's amazing. So I went to uni and I studied science, and then I ended up getting an admin job with NT Police, and I worked for NT Police for several years, and then I eventually ended up being the manager of the PCYC. So, and they have a police riding school, so a PCYC riding school, and so through them, I sort of ended up obviously managing the riding school and doing a lot of like juvenile diversion programs and that sort of thing. And, obviously working full-time with the horses. And, so that's sort of where I probably, thought, maybe this is something that I would like, that I would do full-time. And then I sort of made the leap from there into self-employment and obviously wanted to, focus more on dressage and show jumping disciplines, although I don't like to pigeonhole riding into codes or disciplines. I sort of think good horsemanship is good horsemanship. So, but I guess that's sort of the line that I wanted to follow. So,
Yeah. Wait, can you hear anything? No? That's because we're waiting for someone with a good quality horse product to be advertised here. If that's you, then contact us, horsechats@horsechats.com, and we'll send you the details. Thanks. What do you think then, if you were going to have someone to work for you or someone that's going to look, if you're interviewing people to work, what sort of core skills or character traits would you see that they would need to work in the horse industry?
So, firstly, I think it's a love job. But you're probably not going to get rich doing it. So you need to be in it for the right reasons. Like, you got to be doing it because you love it and because you're passionate about it. So I think passion will probably get you a long way. They need to be hardworking. Look, I work longer hours now than most people would in a full-time job. There's no weekends off. Horses are 24/7. So, you got to be prepared to work hard, to get your hands dirty, and to do all the jobs. I still clean stables, and you sort of have to take the good part and the bad.
Do you think that stops you having to go to the gym? You don't need to go to the gym as much or at all?
No, I don't go to the gym. I don't have time to go to the gym, but you definitely, I think anyone who is in the horse industry knows that it's hard work. You got to be prepared to work hard and you got to be disciplined. So I think, and self-motivated, like I kind of think, well, you have to get up every day. You have to put in 100%. And, regardless of whether it's too hot, too cold, raining, you just have to get out there and do the job. So, so it takes a bit of discipline, I think. The other thing is horsemanship skills. I think horses are a 20-year apprenticeship. It's not a 4-year apprenticeship. It's a 20-year apprenticeship and then some. So, for young people who are sort of looking at doing horses as a career, be prepared to get some serious hours under your belt because, like I said, it's not a 4-year apprenticeship. And then I sort of think, we've got to always be evolving and learning and growing. So at whatever point you're at, we have to still be looking at how we can do things better. And then the other thing is, I always think you should treat your horse customers with as much respect as you treat your human customers. So, it's that thing of going, every horse you get to work with is a privilege, I think. And, regardless of whether it's something that you would choose to ride yourself or not, you sort of got to, you just treat it as a privilege. And I look, every day I go out in the arena, I do sort of remind myself that, and I often remind my riders, that at some stage every little girl wants a pony. So, and I kind of think there's probably only 1% of 1% of little girls in the world that get the dream.
Yep.
that get the dream of having the pony. So I always sort of remind myself that I'm the 1% of 1% that gets to live the dream.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, if you're going to single it down to one best thing? You know, living the dream, is it the full lifestyle or one particular thing?
I think, look, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job.
Yep.
It is a lifestyle. Mm.
Yeah. All right, then what about people who've influenced you?
So we're quite fortunate that we have some excellent, especially show jump coaches that visit Darwin regularly. So probably two of them that have been my biggest influences in show jumping have been David Finch and Clem Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably in terms of overall horsemanship, probably Andrew McLean from Equitation Science International.
Yep.
I sort of really, follow his work. I think he's quite an amazing man.
And that's influenced you a fair bit, you know, because you were doing with the equine science and sort of the mixture of the classical and the equine science?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand, obviously, as riders and as trainers, firstly biomechanics and, you know, behavioural science. So we've got to know how horses learn.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to know why they behave in certain ways. And, so obviously the better we understand how they're actually wired, then the better we can, you know, influence them. Obviously, you know, continuing to practice, you know, humane training practices. I think that's really important.
Yep. All right. Thinking about horses, have you got a particular horse that you think that you've learned a lot from that's influenced you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been lucky over the years to have had some great horses, but many years ago, by default, I acquired a thoroughbred called, so I didn't really get to pick him, but I think he picked me, so that just sort of went that way. But called Optimus Prime, it was a thoroughbred, and he'd come off the racetrack and he had some fairly serious behavioural problems and was unusually aggressive. And he was definitely by far the most difficult horse that I've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't really fit the mould. Yeah, and he certainly made me think outside of the box. So at the time, like a lot of people, you know, that I, you know, would consult with, that I sort of respected a lot as horse people, had recommended that I probably get rid of it, and that it probably wasn't fixable. Anyway, obviously I persevered with him. And look, he was probably the horse that forced me to look for alternative training methods and to get really good at groundwork.
Yes.
I got really good at groundwork. And he taught me how to listen. He was this incredibly sensitive horse, so everything in his world was really loud. And he showed me the difference between a mechanical ride and an instinctive ride. Like it was this whole other world. It was, you know, quite amazing. And just how subtle and how intuitive horses can be, like the most subtle little cues that he'd pick up on. So we ended up having a really great partnership. But the funny thing is that he probably taught me more about myself and about my body language, my thoughts and how they related to my energy.
Yep.
So he sort of really opened up my eyes, that one.
Yeah, I like the way you talked about him showing you, and he showed you, he taught you. So you've obviously learned a lot from him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a really big turning point, that horse. Mm-hmm.
Thinking about your proudest moment, what was that?
Yeah, so that's sort of that's a tough one. It's funny because I don't really think of it in terms of like winning ribbons or titles. I get a lot of enjoyment, and I get a real, you know, sense of achievement, I suppose, and satisfaction out of just working with horses that have problems. I guess I find it fascinating working out what their triggers are.
Yep.
What their fears are, what triggers their anxiety, and then to be able to fix it and for them, and to see them happy in their job, and that the world just becomes a better place for them. That's really nice to see.
Oh, hang on a sec. Let me interrupt to let people know about the horse industry qualifications at onlinehorsecollege.com. If you have a look at the flexible options, there's online theory and the practical components can be completed by video or with a qualified expert in your area. That website again is onlinehorsecollege.com. Okay, thanks. Thinking about where you are now, everything you've learned about horses. What do you think was a challenging time that you had when maybe things weren't going so well? You know, I mean, you're at the stage now where you're recognising and you're saying, the horses showed me, I've learned from this horse. Was there a time that you ever thought, how can I get around this, or what can I do?
Oh, yeah, look, there's definitely, I mean, I think as riders, we've probably all been in that space of just being frustrated and not knowing how to, you recognise that what you're doing is not working, and not having perhaps the knowledge or the help. Like years ago, it would have been more not having, being a little bit isolated, not having help, not having anyone to sort of say, oh, look, you're doing this, you're doing that, or, just sort of having to muddle through things on your own a little bit is really tough. So I definitely recognise how tough that is for riders when, they are a little bit isolated and they don't necessarily, have regular help or regular lessons. It's hard doing it on your own.
Yes, and it's not even, I can't afford a lesson this week. There's no trainers in my area. We've got to fly them in and they have to come, and it's an expensive flight, and then you've got to have the numbers in the area, which is a fairly selective, smaller population, because once you're out of Darwin, you're sort of out in the middle of nowhere again. Yeah, so it's tough just even organising a coach for the weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's not just up here. There's, obviously lots of people living in remote, living in the bush or country Australia where they are a little bit isolated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that's definitely hard when you're trying to sort of muddle through stuff on your own. And then the catch with that, I think, is that if you are, back then, particularly if I was trying to train a movement or something, if I was doing something wrong, well, I'd continue to be doing it wrong probably for a length of time before anyone had corrected it.
Yeah.
So even that in itself was frustrating, that there probably wasn't, that there wasn't anyone consistent or regular that I could see that could help me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Now, I'm interested to talk about, I know that you've said a couple of times, how the horse is a reflection on you. This is something that the horse is. And I know you've worked in the juvenile correctional program. What was the biggest thing that you saw within that program, problems with the people coming in? And tell us some good news stories, how they were fixed through their interaction with horses. Not fixed as in just all of a sudden it's repaired, but how their life's improved because of the interaction with horses.
Yeah, look, it probably surprised me a little bit. I probably underestimated how important that was for some of those kids. So, we had a lot of kids come in, that were on juvenile diversion orders. So basically they've gone through the court system and then they've been, I guess, almost sort of like community service hours where they've sort of been ordered by the court to go and do so many hours of diversionary programs. So a lot of them were kids that had come from dysfunctional families and had probably had pretty tough childhoods, but and then obviously, had been in a bit of trouble. So it always surprised me, I guess. And look, for a lot of them, some of them had learning difficulties. Some of them were flat out reading or writing. most of them were really angry kids. They were, quite aggressive. And it's funny how working with the horses, horses are this great equaliser because it doesn't matter whether you come from a good background or not so good background, or whether you're rich or poor, or you read or write or whatever. They're a great equaliser because basically, and it is really true, that saying of the horse is a reflection of you. So a lot of these kids to start with, they'd come in, most of them are quite angry with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, they couldn't get near the horse.
Yes.
And it's that thing, and their body language, was really aggressive, and they were really in your face. And, so they couldn't get near the horse. So, it's that thing of sort of going, well, you're going to have to turn that down a bit because, the horse doesn't want to bar of you like that. But, it's just sort of really amazing to see them change from when they'd first come in and to have that responsibility of having something else that depended on them. So, they'd obviously have to come in and feed their horse and do all of that sort of stuff. So, and just to see the connection that they would have with her. There was something, that they didn't resent. And, there was quite a few of them that actually, after they'd finished their ordered hours, actually chose to keep coming back. So that was good. Pretty cool, for me, that thing of going, so you actually want to be here now, not because you have to be here.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com. Okay, now thinking about just the knowledge that you've learned through the time that you spent with horses, what's a book that you'd recommend for our listeners?
I really like the equitation science stuff. So there's a great book called The Truth About Horses by Andrew McLean.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really good guide to just understanding horse behaviours and how training relates. I think what's really tough about riding is that everybody has to train horses. Everybody is training horses. So whether they choose to be professional trainers or not, everybody is training horses.
Yep.
So it's that thing of that you don't get to be just a rider, but you sort of have to make sure that you understand, those foundation training principles.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important, and to sort of know what rewards that behaviour. If something's happening that you don't want, to sort of ask yourself, well, what rewards that behaviour, and to understand the principles behind pressure and release training. Is really important for all riders, even kids. We're sort of in a more simple way. We sort of talk about all that sort of stuff because they need to be able to understand it in a fairly logical way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense. And I've got to tell you that the book, The Truth About Horses by Andrew McLean, that's one of our more popular books as well. I think there's been a lot of people on the program that recommend that book. It's a pretty popular one. Yeah.
Oh, they got good taste.
Yeah. And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. Now, Nicole, what are you looking forward to now? What does your future hold?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of young horses coming on, so I'm really looking forward to getting some time on them over the off season. So basically, once our competition season finishes, I'll sort of get to do a bit with them, and I'm always excited about just having time to get out in the arena and just play with stuff.
Yep.
And to refine your skills a little bit, and the young ones are always amazing because they're this clean slate.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah, they're they're quite fascinating little creatures. So
you can hear it in your voice that you're looking forward to it.
Play with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you're summarising your philosophy with horses, you're going to do it just in a few sentences because we've heard you talking for quite a while about it. If you're going to summarise it, what would you say?
Probably just that thing of that all riders are training.
Yep.
You are training horses, and to always have in everything that you do, absolutely everything, to have the intention of training a response.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's on the ground or whether it's under saddle or absolutely everything you do with the horse must be with the intention of training a response. So I think once we sort of are really aware and really focused on that idea of going, right, what am I actually saying and what's the answer that I'm looking for, and then being really clear about rewarding it, then I just think, we'll start and train better horses and happier horses.
Yes. Okay. All right, Nicole, how can people contact you? What's the best way?
So I've got Darwin Equestrian Academy.
Yep.
Has a Facebook page, so they can find me on Facebook. All my details are on there, obviously my phone number and my email and that sort of thing, so they can look us up on Facebook. And, happy to hear from anyone, from your listeners.
Okay, and we'll actually put that link on your page at Horse Chats, which will be horsechats.com/Nicole Mutimer. But just go to Horse Chats and search for Nicole and you'll find that. And all those details will be there and the link to the Facebook page and phone number as well. So, all right, Nicole, thank you for talking to us today. Thank you for sharing your story with horses and, about the horses that are living in the Northern Territory of Australia. It's certainly been a little bit different to understand different conditions, especially people that live in the colder climates.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have you back again sometime and be talking a little bit more in a specialist area. Okay, so thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Glenys.
Bye.
Bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.